Dan Primack is business editor at Axios. And you love to throw cold water, Dan, on all of our excitement. So the bucket is yours.
Yeah, look, people should be excited right now, right? We've gotten not only have we gotten a recent spate of IPOs, almost all of them have traded up. Not just the ones you talk about. We've had a couple digital health ones like Amada and Hinge. Those are both up. eToro is up, all to differing amounts, nothing quite like Circle. But what this has proven is kind of what I've been saying for a couple of years, which is if you go public, the markets kind of do want these new issues. They are ready for these. The only cold water I'll give you, Kelly, is that there's not a huge pipeline of things already filed to come later. But that might partially be calendar, just people don't generally like pricing into the summer.
I'll be very curious if this ends up just being crypto IPOs that explode, or like, for instance, Voyager. I mean, I guess that if you're in space, maybe you're kind of in that Elon Musk world of excitement. I don't know, but that's what I'm curious about is it kind of crypto specific or not?
Yeah, I mean, really, the vast majority of what we've seen has either been fintech. I mean, that's been most of it. Chime is a neobank, obviously Circle, eToro was an exchange. So it's mostly been fintech so far, a little bit of digital health. But you're right, we haven't seen a lot of, say, things like enterprise software. We haven't seen a lot of pharma, although Caris Life Sciences is supposed to come next week. We haven't seen a lot of those other sectors. Remember, there are hundreds of unicorns sitting waiting to come out, let alone lots of other private companies, including private equity-backed ones. There is an insurance broker supposed to go this week, but beyond that, it's been kind of light.
I had dinner with a chairman of a big M&A law firm a couple weeks ago, and he said he was very busy. Another lawyer friend of mine says they are very busy. But I guess the question, Dan, is this just like a weird window of time because we've got some, peace in the stock market? We've soared 25% in 2 months. Or do you think this is kind of a broader theme? The rest of the year will also be sort of ramping up the IPO window.
Well, part of it is we do have a little bit of a concentrated push because after Liberation Day, you had a handful of companies that were planning to go public in early to mid-April, and they all put everything on pause. They freaked out. They all stopped. And then, 3-4 weeks later, they restarted their process. So you had those, plus some that were already planning to go in May or June. So you had a little bit more concentration than you otherwise would have. I do think the second half is the big question, right? We don't have a lot of stuff on file for the second half of the year, for the summer. And again, as I said to Kelly, that's not that unusual. Bankers, companies often take vacation and don't like to price into July or August. The real question is going to be, come the middle of August, do we start to see a lot of companies file then so they can come out after Labor Day, which traditionally that Labor Day to Thanksgiving is usually the busiest period for IPOs in a normal year.
Anything you'd add for people who are thinking specifically about Circle or Voyager?
Not particularly. I mean, look, Circle's an interesting bet, right? And it feels a little bit like an old-fashioned IPO, right? Like it's actually popped a lot after it. People who got in at the IPO price actually are getting value on it. Look, it's the largest U.S. stablecoin issuer, and it's come out at I know people say you don't time IPOs, but man, it came out right as stablecoin legislation seems. I know there's a little hiccup here or there, but seems like it's probably going to pass and get signed into law. If you were you can't time it better if you were Circle.
What about Chime?
Chime is a little different, right? Chime is going to come out, but it's looking at least like it's going to come out way below where its last private market valuation was. And on the one hand, you'd look at that and say, well, that's a sign of weakness. To me, though, what that's suggesting, and we've seen a couple other companies like this, is that some companies are willing to say, you know what, the valuations we got in 2021, 2022, those were zero interest rate valuations. Venture capitalists were a little bit drunk with their own capital. We didn't actually deserve it. We can grow into it in the public market. We don't have to wait to grow it into the private market. Even Circle originally, before it upped its IPO range and then obviously the pop, even Circle was planning to go public below its last private valuation.